Here's your wrestling news for September 16th, 2022. And we're kicking off today with WWE, and when Vince McMahon retired earlier this year, it came after a series of explosive allegations against the former chairman, who had been accused of relationships and misconduct with employees. Given the nature of the claims, many fans thought we'd seen the last of Vince McMahon, but that may no longer be the case. That's according to the U.S. Sun, who note that WWE co-CEO Stephanie McMahon wants to induct her father into the WWE Hall of Fame next year and give him a proper send-off. McMahon may be a controversial figure to say the least, but he is still one of, if not the most influential person in professional wrestling history, and had a very unceremonious end to his career on and off screen. With that said, WWE are well aware that any celebration of Vince would spark a potential backlash, as the things he's been accused of are still fresh in the minds of fans. Some have also questioned if next year is too soon, as an induction would also mean a WrestleMania 39 appearance and likely a hostile response from the crowd. Vince McMahon may have walked down the aisle to No Chance in Hell countless times, but there is a chance that he will have one more WrestleMania appearance, despite the scandal that brought an end to his 4 decades on top of the wrestling world. On this week's NXT 2.0, it was announced that the show will be going back to its black and gold roots, and a change fans have been hoping to see for the past year. One change that's been confirmed is the return of NXT TakeOver specials, the next of which will be NXT Halloween Havoc next month. WWE hasn't publicly confirmed any matches for the show, but the main event was confirmed during the taping for upcoming episodes of NXT, so this is your official spoiler warning. During the taping for the episode that'll air on September 27th, a segment with NXT champion Braun Breaker included Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough, with a triple threat match being arranged for Halloween Havoc with Breaker's title on the line. The segment also confirms that Ilya Dragunov, a former NXT UK champion, will be sticking with the company in NXT after the UK division closed its doors and almost cut the entire roster. The numbers will be stacked against the champion, so we'll have to see if Halloween Havoc is a trick or treat for Braun Breaker's reign on top of NXT. Last month, Patrick Clark, formerly known as Velveteen Dream, was arrested not once, but twice. Clark was arrested first for an alleged battery at a gym and was arrested a second time for violating a pre-existing probation. Now we know more, as PW Insider reports that this probation came about because Clark was arrested back in November 2021. Florida's Almonte Springs Police Department, who charged him with possession of cocaine, use or possession of drug paraphernalia, destroying, altering, or concealing physical evidence, and having no lamps or illuminating devices in his vehicle. In April, his lawyer's attorney arranged a plea agreement that resulted in a 12-month probation sentence, which he violated with his battery arrest. It was also reported that Clark was incarcerated for 25 days due to his probation violation and was released this past Tuesday. Not only that, but at the time of his probation in April, Clark also agreed to a $213 fine for court costs and was ordered to serve 25 hours of community service. Given that Clark has pled not guilty to the much more recent battery charge, the former NXT superstar isn't done with the legal system yet, but it remains to be seen if he has any better luck keeping out of a cell. Now, after the backstage fight at AEW All Out, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk, and Ace Steel were all removed from programming, and they weren't the only ones who got in trouble. Michael Nakazawa, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, and Brandon Cutler were also suspended, despite trying to break up the fight, but their suspensions ended this week. In an update from Fightful, it's explained that AEW did not plan on suspending these people for long, but it was instead done preliminarily and for precautionary reasons until more information came to light. Once investigators knew for certain that these 4 men didn't cause any harm during the fight, then it was decided that their actions didn't merit any further punishment. Pat Buck was backstage for this week's Dynamite, while Daniels and Nakazawa have been traveling to Japan to work matches for AEW at the Tokyo Games show. As for the Bucks and Omega, there's no telling when they'll be back, while Punk and Steel may not be back at all, but we'll have to wait until the investigation is concluded to know for sure. One name who is suspended for a much different reason is Jeff Hardy, who hasn't been seen in months due to his recent DUI arrest. It's been 3 months since the former world champion was arrested and charged with drunk driving, and if convicted, could face a maximum punishment of up to 5 years in prison. Jeff is currently undergoing rehab for his drinking, and on his Extreme Life podcast, Matt Hardy gave an update on his little brother. We're getting close to the point where we meet the new Jeff and we figure out his future and what he ends up doing. I'm pretty excited because I feel like his mentality is that he knows he has to make changes and do what's right, and I feel like he's at the point where he will this time around. Jeff certainly does have to change, as Tony Khan has said that while he supports the former WWE champion, this is his first and last chance in AEW. Should Jeff have another incident like this, he'll not only be gone from AEW, but will likely struggle to find work in another promotion. So, here's hoping Hardy is changing like his brother says. This week, WWE Raw drew 1.71 million viewers, a sharp decline from previous weeks, which surpassed over 2 million. WWE has been averaging over 2 million viewers for the Red brand ever since Triple H came to power as head of creative and head of talent, but this week's setback isn't a cause for concern. That's according to those within WWE, who told Fightful WWE isn't worried, considering that the show went up against the season premiere of the NFL as well as the EMAs. In fact, WWE suspected that the show would dip even further, thinking that the show would fall below 1.7 million, so this week's result is pretty good, all things considered. With that said, WWE is doing all they can to bounce back for next week, including a United States title match between Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins booked for the September 19th Raw. WWE has for years struggled to get fans to tune into the Red brand, and while this week was a sharp decline, the promotion isn't too worried about the figures. Over to SmackDown now, as tonight's show will see WWE build towards Extreme Rules, but the Blue brand will have a special guest on hand. On Twitter, the official WWE account confirmed that Logan Paul will be on the show in his first appearance for WWE since SummerSlam, where he defeated The Miz. During a recent episode of Paul's Impulsive podcast, he spoke to Roman Reigns and expressed his desire to face the Tribal Chief, leading to Triple H booking him for tonight's show. The response to this hasn't exactly been great, as on social media, fans have been furious at the prospect of a Reigns-Paul confrontation and the idea that Logan Paul may soon have an undisputed WWE Universal Championship match. If so, the match will likely be at Crown Jewel, WWE's next Saudi event in November, as Reigns is not scheduled to be at next month's Extreme Rules. Paul remains undefeated since signing with WWE earlier this year, and it'll be interesting to see what he and Reigns do during tonight's edition of SmackDown. Now, CM Punk hasn't been seen in AEW for almost 2 weeks, and his future with the promotion remains unclear. While we know Punk won't be wrestling anytime soon due to his injury, it remains to be seen if he'll be back at all, or if Tony Khan will cut ties with him following his comments on the All Out post-show and for the fight. A lot has been said about Punk since what happened, and on his Wrestling with Freddie podcast, former WWE writer Freddie Prinze Jr. also weighed in. Prinze spoke about how while Punk has a philosophy he wants to teach the younger wrestlers, it's not easy to do so, especially when you're getting injured. It's hard for that younger generation to buy into your philosophy. They're like, he's talking about us working and gonna get hurt, and he's hurt every match he's in. Punk's first AEW World title reign didn't go as planned due to injury, and his second ended due to both his current injury and his comments and the fight. At 43 years old, Punk is hardly a young man anymore, and his body knows that, so if he does return, the two-time former AEW World Champion will have to reflect long and hard over his style in the ring. To many people, age is just a number, and one person who's ready to get back in the ring is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. The WWE Hall of Famer hasn't wrestled in 12 years, but that will soon all change this November. It's been announced that Steamboat will return to the Dorton Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina on Sunday, November 27th, likely in a tag team bout for Big Time Wrestling. In a statement, BTW co-owner Steve Perkins praised the Dragon as one of the greatest of all time and announced that tickets are already on sale. Steamboat's last match was on June 18, 2010 at an FCW WWE developmental event where he teamed with his son Richie Steamboat against Trent Beretta and Kalen Croft, but now the Dragon will be getting back in the ring one more time. We've got more from SmackDown now, as we know that Logan Paul will be on tonight's episode, but he's not the only surprise in store. That's according to PW Insider, who report that Damage Control will also be on the show and have been added to the creative plans for SmackDown. WWE have not announced Damage Control for the show, though the stable are allowed to appear on both Raw and SmackDown, following Io Sky and Dakota Kai winning the WWE Women's Tag Team titles during this week's Raw. From the looks of it, WWE also has plans for Bayley to square off against Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair soon, but before that, the role model and her crew have business to attend to on tonight's show. And we're ending today with more from AEW, as this week's Dynamite saw Bryan Danielson get one step closer to becoming AEW World Champion, defeating Chris Jericho in the semifinals of the ongoing tournament. Dynamite ended with a tense face-off between Danielson and Jon Moxley, who he'll face in the finals next week in a meeting of the Blackpool Combat Club. After Dynamite went off the air, Danielson took his time getting to the back, selling the physicality of the match with Jericho. The American Dragon also stopped by the AEW World title that was at ringside and picked up the championship belt to a huge pop from the crowd. Fans live at Dynamite loved seeing Bryan Danielson with the AEW World Championship, but he'll have his work cut out next week if he wants to be the promotion's true champion against a very game Moxley. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.